to the UIAAA Connection podcast. GoFan and VNN are proud to be the exclusive sponsor of the UIAAA Connection. Now a combined company, GoFan and VNN provide a seamless integration for digital ticketing and athletic websites. Direct your fans to one place for all your athletic events, communications, and tickets to home and away games. Thank you to GoFan and VNN for their exclusive sponsorship of the UIAAA Connection.
Welcome back to another edition of the UIAAA Connection. I'm your host, Mark Hutch Hunter. Today we have as our special guest Kyle Sanderson, Certified Athletic Administrator, the Director of Athletics at Pleasant Grove High School in Pleasant Grove, Utah. Welcome to the podcast, Kyle.
Thanks, Hutch.
Let's have you begin by sharing with our international audience where you grew up, where you went to school, where you went to college, your first job, etc.
Well, I actually grew up here in Pleasant Grove, Utah, where I'm currently working. Grew up pretty much in an athletic family. That was kind of what we did in our family vacations. We were all just usually wrestling trips in the summer. Through the schooling program here in Alpine School District, attended UVU right out of high school, served an LDS mission, and then came home and ended up transferring to BYU, where I got a degree in math education. I guess after that point, I started teaching, got hired here at Pleasant Grove High School as a math teacher, and then and started coaching with that. And then I decided to go back and get a master's degree in administration, and it kind of led me to this position here. So
share with us then, if I heard you correctly, so you went to PG, you went to Pleasant Grove High School.
Yes, sir.
So you're one of the, I guess it's just more than a few guests now. We've had quite a few guests that are actually working at their alma mater. So how is it going back and being the kid, and all of a sudden 5 and 6 years later, you're on the same ground as people that at one time were your instructors?
I guess going into it, I mean, I looked up to the teachers and coaches I had here. I have some educators in my family. And so it kind of was just a natural fit for me. When I came back, I started coaching the year before I started teaching. My high school coach actually hired me back as an assistant. And so that's what started me on that level playing field, if you will. And I guess just kind of built on the relationships that I had already established as a student. Like I still go to lunch about twice a month with one of those coaches that I was referring to. And so it's just been a great experience for me.
Talk about your youth growing up in PG. I realize it's a metropolitan area. Did you have plenty of time for youth sports? I know you were a wrestler, and I know wrestling's big at PG. So talk about some of those experiences when you were younger.
So Pleasant Grove's, well, at least relatively was a smaller community back then. So we were pretty tight knit. We all kind of at the time ran around together, and we all kind of just moved from one group to the next. And my grandfather here in Pleasant Grove ran our youth wrestling program. So we all just kind of wrestled. And then once wrestling season was over, we moved to football in the fall and then wrestling in the winter. And once we got towards high school and then or basketball. And then a lot of us went on to baseball too. So it was just, I don't know. I look at my own kids now and I'm like, just go outside and play, or that's what we did. We didn't stay inside. We were out playing with something. So it's just the way we did it.
And that is such great advice, such a great story. Too many, and of course I'm on my soapbox, but my goodness, if we can get more kids off of their phones and into some sort of athletic field, I think would be better off. So thank you for bringing that up. Let's have you share with our audience some of the mentors that were in your life that have made a difference in where you've ended up.
Oh man, there's been a lot. I can't go anywhere without my family, and the Sandersons is kind of a pretty big family. But my parents were very big in my involvement in athletics. All my siblings have all been involved as well, but it goes back to my uncles. Like I already told you, my grandfather ran the youth wrestling program here in Pleasant Grove for many years. Well, that I can remember. He was still doing it after I finished. So that's what kind of got me started. The biggest impact on me and what I chose to do probably came once I got into high school. My high school coaches, Coach Michelson, who was just inducted into the Utah Coaches Hall of Fame, Coach Hoover, who's also been inducted there, and then Coach Henry. Well, I guess all three of mine head coaches that I participated for have been recognized for that. But there was a couple of assistants, Clark Blaisdell, and he's the one that I still go to lunch with and try and see as often as possible. I think they instilled in me, and I hope to have the same impact on the students here at Pleasant Grove High School that they had on me, because they were very influential and role models, I guess, is that kind of pointed me or guided me in the direction that I ended up. So,
coming from a wrestling family, I have to ask this: what is your relationship to possibly the most famous wrestler in the history of Utah, Cael Sanderson?
So he is my first cousin. My uncle Steve and my dad, well, they're brothers. So I grew up with Cael. He's a couple of years younger than me. So it's been fun. I was just watching an interview that he was doing that's been posted on YouTube that he did. So I still follow Penn State a little bit.
The burning question is, he was a couple years younger than you. Could you wrestle with him and beat him? Because no one else seems to be able to.
Well, I never had a chance to wrestle Cael. So when I was in high school, he was quite a bit smaller. When I got out of high school, he had this growth spurt that kind of was unexpected. Well, just because all of us are all kind of shorter. And man, I came home from my mission and he's now 6 inches taller and 50 pounds heavier probably. But no, I would say I dare to say I'd never could have probably even taken him down. So
all right, let me ask you a little bit of a personal question here, Kyle. What's your biggest failure or disappointment in life, and what did you learn from it?
So I've been thinking about that question a little bit, and I don't know if there's been the biggest that stands out to me. It's been more little ones. It's just, I think my personality, I've tried to take on too much at times. And so I get overwhelmed, and it goes from my teaching career, my family life, now doing this. If I found myself taking on too much, get overwhelmed, and then it's almost like I shut down a little bit. And it's kind of caused me to have the mantra that control what you can control, which means I'm not going to worry about those things that I don't have control over, because they're going to happen no matter what. I'm going to kind of focus on what I can control and try and do that the best I can, and then help out in other places if possible.
Thanks for sharing that. Let's have you talk a little bit more about your background at PG, teaching, coaching. Give us a little bit more insight into that before you became the AD.
Okay. So like I said, I started coaching here a year before I was hired as a math teacher. I was a math teacher for about 15, 16 years, along with coaching. So I coached about the same time frame, then continued teaching math when I went back to school and got my master's degree. And along that time, the athletic director that was here for many years, she retired. And I kind of took over the assistant athletic director roles as well. Then our district, right after I finished my master's, our district decided to go to full-time athletic directors. And that's when I was promoted to athletic director here. So, and that's been the last 4 or 5 years now, I guess.
That's some great information. Thank you, and thank you, district, for having the foresight to hire full-time ADs. I know some of the districts are really coming around now. If I could get more of the districts to do that, I know my life would be easier, and I know it would be easier for our students. Let's talk for a minute about the job of AD and how it's changed just in the time that you've taken over. Now, I realize it was during COVID, so take COVID out of there. So COVID was a mess for everybody. So how has the job changed just since you became an AD?
I guess it's just become more. And I don't know if I could specify in one specific spot. Like you said, I don't know how athletic directors do it that are still in the classroom as well. Because I have a really good assistant AD here, Nate Johnston, who's been here for a long time. And he does things that there's no way that I would be able to do on my own. So just how big it's gotten, the roles. Hopefully I'm able to help our administrators. I can take stuff off their plate. But it's just one of those things that it just seems like it's getting busier and busier. I mean, here in Utah, we keep adding sports that fall under our assignment. And so I just need to put a bed in my office so I can catch a nap once in a while.
Share with our audience what it was like for those not in Utah. This is the first year of boys volleyball, and it's in the spring. And of course, you've got baseball in the spring, softball in the spring. You've got soccer. You've got track, boys and girls. You've got lacrosse, which hasn't been around that long. Talk about the first 2 weeks of the spring season when there was snow on the ground and it kept raining and it kept snowing. And you as the AD had to find time for all of these people inside your building.
I mean, I worked really closely with our assistant principal of athletics as well. But we had to make time in gyms, and luckily our coaches were really understanding that, hey, you normally practice at this time, but hey, here's the gym space we have, and it's 3 hours later. We did have teams schedule games in St. George. So just trying to help our coaches maneuver all that and be willing to adjust their schedules, kind of for the greater good. So I figure I lucked out because our coaches were so willing to work with each other. But it's a pretty nice juggling act, I guess, if you want to call it that, just being able to move and try and keep everybody happy. So
let's talk for a minute about your journey with the UIAAA, how you heard about it, how you became involved, etc.
So then this is my one regret. So I became an assistant AD. I had my little responsibility with supervision and a few other little things. And I did that probably for, close to 10 years and didn't hear much. I didn't know about the UIAAA. I mean, I interacted with other ADs, but not very much. And then I was promoted to the athletic director. And then I started getting emails about the state conferences, all of the LTC courses that were being offered. And I'm like, hey, what is this? So I started diving into it, and I took my first LTC or LTI course through the state. I'm like, oh, this is something that's going to make me better at my job. And so I started taking more classes, and then the UIAAA gave me a sponsorship to go to my first national convention in Denver. And I've never looked back, man. It's something I'm trying to get more involved as much as possible, and it's just making me better at what I do. So it's been
Let's
wonderful.
let's have you talk. So you won one of those UIAAA scholarships, went to Denver. That was we still had our masks on. It was after COVID. Did you get to Nashville also?
I did.
Yeah, and so then you went to Nashville, which was the largest we've had, and then maybe you've got some stories about the most recent one that was last December in Orlando. That's 3 conferences for you. That's more than some people get to go to. So I'm interested in what you learned there, the people you met, the observations you had about the NIAAA family and the UIAAA family.
So the national conferences, to me, that's just something that's going to be what I do now. My administration's been really good to allow me to go. But I mean, I've been really big on the LTC courses that are there and that are offered. And that's kind of opened me up to relationships with a bunch of other ADs, not only in Utah, but throughout the nation. And just to know I'm not alone. That's kind of been the best part is, oh, they have the same issue I'm dealing with here in my little town of Pleasant Grove, Utah. And they're sharing how they've dealt with it. And then, to be honest, the UIAAA, I can't say enough about the group we have here in Utah. I'm their biggest fan. They've been so willing to help me and very quick to respond to questions I have. It's fun to see them at games and, and just see how life's going. And because I wish I got to see them more often, but yeah, I don't know if I could be doing this job without the UIAAA and all the support that they give. So,
well, the association appreciates that. You're very kind. Let's have you talk for a moment, Kyle, about the importance of becoming certified. Now that I think you've been certified probably since 2022. You went through the process, talked to some of our audience members that may not be there yet and why they need to become certified.
Well, just the process of getting certified opened up a lot of doors. Now, am I still working on some of those doors that have been opened? Yes, right. But I think it's making the program or our athletics department here at PG High better. And then the knowledge that I've been able to receive from taking the courses and the trainings have just made me better at what I do. And I mean, now I'm looking at the CMA certification, and I've already started that process. And again, the UIAAA and the leadership there has stepped in and said, hey, this could help you by doing this, or how about you think about joining a cohort, which now I'm looking into, and the steps I need to do to get into that. And just, again, relationships that I've built and hope to build on, and it's been wonderful. So,
Kyle, what's one myth about being an athletic director that you would like to debunk to the general public?
so this is the one that happens to me more often. And it's parents, some of my friends from high school, athletes here at the school. Oh, hey, Sanderson, you just get to go to games. That's the best job ever. Yes, that is a great thing. But if I said that was the only thing I did, I would be lying. That's probably 1% of my job is being able to go and support our athletes at their games and be a fan again. It's everything I've got to do just to get that game on the field or the court. That is the other 99% of my job. So hopefully we can debunk that one.
There you go. What's the favorite part of your job, Kyle?
Oh, hands down, my relationship with our coaches and our athletes. When I stepped away from coaching to go back to school, that was the one thing I missed, was just being able to interact with the great young people that happen to be at PG High, and also the coaches that we have here on staff. So by now, getting into this role, that's opened those back up. A little bit different role, but being able to walk down the hall and high five all the different athletes and say, hey, you had a great game last night. and to know that they know I was there, that I build off their energy. So
that is excellent. Thanks so much for sharing. Let's finish up with a couple of questions here, Kyle. The first being, I need your 2 suggestions for a brand new AD. In order to become successful, they would need to follow Kyle's 2 suggestions on how to become a success. What would those 2 suggestions be?
So my number 1 would be get involved. Get involved in the UIAAA. Get to know the ADs that have been doing this a lot longer, just because they've been so willing to help out. That would be my number 1. And then to be able to narrow it down to a second, well, to be honest with you, go to the conferences. Get to the state conference that we have every year, and then get to the national conference however you can. That's through a scholarship or just the knowledge, the camaraderie. It's not going to only make you a better AD, but it's going to be that support system that you can build on to help you last in this profession.
Very well said. Thanks. 2 great suggestions, and hopefully those listening will take that to heart, that are brand new to the profession. Let's finish up with this question. Kyle, what question should I have asked you that I failed to ask you?
Whew. That one's a tough one, just because there's so many things that just the day stuff, I guess, of an AD. Some of my colleagues have asked, "Hey, what is your day like?" Because if I could show you my office, I call it organized chaos.
I understand.
And so I've tried to organize myself in my to-do list. But what I found in my job is I have these plans and my to-do list, and then all of a sudden this little fire starts over here, and there's been a massive spill on the court. Now I got to put on my custodian hat and go get that cleaned up. And I get back to my office, end of the day, worn out. I look at my to-do list and I haven't been able to check off one of those things because it's just been one thing after another. And so and I guess that's one of the perks of my job. I have no idea what it's going to be day to day.
That is some great insight. And of course, all that happens after you get the 150 emails that are on your desk every morning when you get there before 7, and which one of those have to be answered before you can get to anything else. So
right.
that is such great insight. With that ends this edition of the UIAAA Connection. Again, our special guest today has been Kyle Sanderson, Certified Athletic Administrator, the Director of Athletics at Pleasant Grove High School in Pleasant Grove, Utah. Kyle, thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Oh, thanks for having me.
For our listeners, we hope you tune in again next week for another edition of the UIAAA Connection.